City of Prairie City Council is back in session from executive session. Ms. Johnson, would you certify the quorum, please?
Councilman Rowland,
Present.
Councilman Randall, Councilman Jones,
Here.
Councilwoman Williams, here, Councilman Wallace.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. And that's 7:18. We reconvene. Okay, we're back in session from executive session. What's the will of the council? Councilman Rowland?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Could I ask you, thank you for allowing us to move forward and have this conversation, discussion. Can you identify what is the permit process for the city of Prairie?
Okay, now is that a part of what we went into executive session for with the special meeting council? I just want to make sure we stay on point.
It says issues associated with the Panther Hill Apartments, so to the extent that the permitting process.
Yes,
is
that's what
associated.
the permitting process for Panther Hill.
Okay?
Yes.
The same as it's been since I took office. There's a packet that's given, dependent on whether or not it's commercial or residential. And that packet is, delineates, which I've shared with council a couple of times, the documentation and the process. And what happens is the developer, builder, whoever it is, would submit the completed packet along with the fee that Bureau Veritas helps us to obtain through their automated system, and a set of 2 plans for what it is they propose to do. One set of plans would go to our city engineer, which is what went to city engineer at the time, David Linedecker. The other set of plans would go to Bureau Veritas. And at that point, Bureau Veritas and the city engineer are dealing with the person over supervising the project. They go back and forth outside of the city purview, essentially. But that's essentially the basic process to get it started. And Bureau Veritas does inspections. Engineers, often by the project developer and or the city, are involved. Master plumbers are involved. Sometimes licensed electricians, professionals who are licensed and certified to oversee and check the work that's being done.
In this process, you said that the city engineer at the time, Mr. Linedecker, Clan Linedecker, got a set of plans.
Correct.
I think council for some time have been asking, citizens have been asking, do you have a set of plans where the city engineer has signed off on this project?
We have it, or it's at Mr. Linedecker's office, but he signed off on it, yes. As a matter of fact, hold on, let me finish. As a matter of fact, we have a letter from Mr. Linedecker, and it's dated, I think it's stamped in our office, May 8th, or from him. Right, but, and I'm gonna read it into the record, and I thank you for it, because I didn't have mine handy. It says, revised engineering plans dated April 12, 2018, student housing, and he lists Ellen Powell Drive, which is the backside of Richards Road, in Prairie View, Texas. Revised engineering plans means Mr. Linedecker had the plans in order to revise them, and he says, I have reviewed the revised engineering plans, and he makes some concerns with the water system, sanitary sewer system, drainage detention system, which was followed up on by the developer. So this is proof Mr. Linedecker had the plans.
No, my question, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, just so we're clear, and this is just questions.
Sure.
My question to you was, did the city engineer sign off on the plans that was submitted by Panther Hill? Not did he receive it. The letter on May 8th that I gave to you, it says, I have reviewed and revised the engineering plans dated April 12th on the above referenced project, below are my concerns I have with the plans. Meaning, even where they were at May 8th, he still had concerns, and we still moved forward. On the things that are addressed, there should be a document. So, Mr. Mayor, if you're the administrator of the city and administrating this process, your office issues the COs. You should have documents that show us that you should be able to pull out right now that shows where we're at from step 1 through step 25 with all the signatories on this for this particular project. And so in my question on asking about the permit process,
I'm sorry, I'm just getting something and follow up with your question. Go ahead, I'm listening.
so when I ask about the permit process, the city should have a copy of documents that don't belong to the mayor, that belong to the city, that we should be able to have in a file that has a copy of all the documents and signatures for this particular project. Is that correct? Do we have that?
What you state seems to be
I'm asked the question. The reason why I'm asking these questions is because it shouldn't be that you got it or he may have it. You should say unequivocally, we have a document in City Hall with the signature of the engineer that is one of the first processes for this project moving forward. Now, 12 months later, we're still talking about things with Panther Hill. Our question and concerns for several months have been, do we have the correct paperwork to move this process forward?
Are you done?
Yes.
This is a file of engineers' reports, master plumbers' reports, Bureau Veritas inspection reports, and there's more. But yes, we have this. This is a copy of what we have that I had one of our city administrative secretaries send over to the city attorney. So in answer to your question, we have a lot of documents. What each one of these documents says, I couldn't tell you. But neither could you tell me on this building that y'all built that is, messed up 10 years ago. But what I'm saying is, we have professional reports who I have relied on, very similar to any other project in the city, whether it's a house, whether it's the Flowchem situation, every company, the process has been the same since I've been here. And essentially, I followed the process that was in place when I took office, and you've been here 8 years, so I'm following the same process y'all put in place. Yes, sir.
For the record, I did not receive the document that says that the city engineer approved of it. We all got the same document which says that he reviewed and revised it, which is preliminary, but that doesn't mean that you actually signed off on it. And as we've been asking for months for this documentation, we would think that the easiest thing to do to, silence us if you feel like, we've been too accountable, is to give us a document that said that he signed off. But to this moment, we haven't received that document.
This is the first time the document that has been requested for several months was the Bureau Veritas plan sign-off, and at least twice they were placed right on this counter. It may have been before you came in, Counselor, I'm not sure. But it has been in this room a few times with countless signatures from Bureau Veritas. So council has received that. Today is the first time I'm hearing you want to see the signed document from the city engineer. So that will be provided. That's not a problem. It's not a secret, and we have no problem giving it to you. Councilman Jones.
Was the final plan signed off before work was done to start on this project?
We had, you want to answer your question, you want to let me answer it?
I mean,
No, you're shaking your head, no, you're acting like.
because we know these answers.
Then don't ask the question if you know.
No, we are asking these questions for the public. You just did this parade of these documents in which the council has been asking for this whole entire time. Which if citizens been showing up to this meeting, knowing that we've been asking for these signed off documents, it took for our new lovely city attorney to get the documents, and there's not even all the documents, but I'll just go to a simple question that the citizens are here to know. Did the city dot their I's and cross their T's as far as doing everything to make sure that this project was going about safely?
Safely, yes, absolutely. We relied on fire inspectors, we relied on Bureau Veritas inspectors. Often I walk with and behind them. We relied on master plumbers. Part of these are engineers' reports. So absolutely, those buildings were signed off as safe. Now, when you say something like the potential of a backup in the sewage, that's not a safety issue in one room, because that's something that can happen in your house. When, from a safety standpoint, the one fire that I'm aware of was when a young man cut on the oven and he had the manual in the oven and the fire department was called.
So the city is not reliable for anything that is taking place over there?
That's a legal question, you have to ask the counselor that. But we don't have
I'm
any
not gonna answer that
known,
question out here.
we don't have any known violations that might incur liability. It's about known.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that for this day forward, no temporary certificates of occupancy be given out until the city of Prairie hire a building director.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that no more temporary certificates of occupancy be issued by the city until the city hires a building
Can I just
official.
Can I
Is
just
our
suggest
official term.
one modification of that I was thinking about? Unless the appropriate, no? Okay, all right. Never mind. I was gonna say,
But building official, I think, is our official.
no, not
term.
building official. I mean,
No,
if-
I mean in terms of what our records
if Bureau
say.
Veritas gives a written document signed by an inspector of Bureau Veritas authorizing the, no? Okay. It's up to y'all. It's your policy decision. It's just my recommendation.
What's the right terminology?
Building official.
Oh, building official.
So, say the motion one more time.
That the city of Prairie doesn't give out any more temporary certificates of occupancy or occupancies, period, till we hire a building official.
Second.
Do we need to be more specific on the fact that the hiring a building official, because that could be someone on the inside, that could be.
Hold on just a second, let me go with the discussion, and we'll pick up on your point, because it's a good
It
point.
has-
But there's a motion on the floor. Hold on. We have to Yes, it has.
Oh,
She seconded it. Okay, you've heard the motion, ready for the questions. Go ahead, Councilman Wallace.
Yeah, so I think we need to be a little more specific, because when you leave it out, say hire a building official, I mean, that could be anybody even in this room right now, so I think the language needs to be a little more specific for what we need.
How about it was approved by council and then y'all could,
Yep,
Is
that
that
was
that
fine.
friendly amendment?
That's
Okay.
approved by council.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, with the friendly amendment of approved by council. You've heard the motion, ready for further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the approval by council, building official, no more temporary COs, and I heard COs, is that correct? Until we have this person hired.
that's what I heard.
Not just on Panther Hill property, this is period.
That's what I heard.
All right, thank you.
Any more readiness?
Ms. Johnson, did you write that down?
Yes.
Can you read it back to us the way that it was said?
No more temporary certificate of occupancy until we hire a building official approved by council.
So it was temporary certificates of occupancy and certificates of occupancy, because two totally different. And after you write down, can you read it again?
No more certificate of occupancy or temporary certificate of occupancy until we hire a building official approved, upon approval by council.
You said no more temporary certificate of occupancy and certificates of occupancy?
Yes,
Okay, until what?
until we hire a building official upon approval by council.
Any more readiness? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right? Ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman?
in this process, I won't ask you, I won't preface this, but moving forward, say a developer tomorrow wants to build some apartments similar to Panther Hill. How are we gonna go about making sure we have documentation that we need to be able to support moving forward outside of just hiring a person? Meaning there's some structural things that need to happen within your administration to help that documents this process. And so do you plan to administer, do you plan to put forth, we have several developments coming, and we want to make sure everybody has the process, know where they're at in the queue. What do you plan to do as far as your administrative place, so we're not in the same situation as what we were with Panther Hill? Because again,
Let me answer your question. The motion that council just passed, per our discussion, is supposed to take care of the oversight of that process. So it won't really be on the city administration per se as it has been. So that was the whole purpose of us, as I understand it, looking to go out and get a professional who knows and oversees the Bureau Veritas process, the International Building Code 2015 process.
No.
What are you referring to?
What I'm referring to, what we just approved was not that. We approved someone to help alleviate some situations. We still are unclear in the process, in our process, meaning, are we gonna follow the current process that we adopted with the IBC 2015? Are we gonna follow our current development process as we move, that is set currently in our documents? We know that that process was not followed, and so we now are gonna have someone who specifically speaks to those issues, which is the building official. But but if we still have a process that is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laid out that we're following, that doesn't move us forward. And so I'm simply trying to find out, moving forward with some of the other developments, similar to the process of Panther Hill, how are we going to move forward? I mean, outside of just bringing in a building official, are we going to change any way we process paperwork?
Hold on. You asked the question. You're asking several different things, so it's kind of convoluted. If we bring someone in to follow the process that we have in place, you're asking me if we bring that person in, are we still gonna follow that process? I'm like really confused.
So if we bring someone in, right now the building official will have the capacity they will talk and communicate with Bureau Veritas and the developer. We've given, I think we're giving them the ability to issue a CO or a temporary CO. We don't have a process outlined on how that information is going to be, how that information is going to be documented, stored. We don't, because this is not going to be an employee. This is going to be another consultant. What we've heard from you over the last 12 months is people who's been very busy, the people who we pay, and they're waiting to kind of get to us. And so bringing on this consultant, we'll have a person who will be hands-on on this project, but we still need to direct this person a process. And so the question from your administration, because the person reports to the mayor.
Actually, no, let me help you there. Council regulates policy, so I would suggest that you oversee and chair that and make that happen. Mayor implements. You're speaking of setting up a policy, so if you have something you want to set up, you're perfectly free to do that and bring it back to council. Councilwoman Williams?
I would like to recommend that the person that we hire that's gonna be the building official, I think we need to look at that person to give us some guidance as to how our office needs to operate. And so if this building official who's gonna be signing off on all these occupancy certificates and all these things, then that person needs to be the one to say, how we will go about with permits, who will sign up on the permits, those things. I don't think it needs to be left of us to come up with it because what was came up with before evidently didn't work. So we need to allow this person to give us some guidance in that aspect, and that's my recommendation.
Okay, Councilman Jones?
I have a question for council. I know that, moving forward that we did want a building official, but, to help us throughout this short time period, I don't know if you can say yes or no to this, but should we look at hiring a consultant to go over, our issues that we're facing now to go ahead and, so I
Yes.
should make that motion too?
Yes.
Councilman?
I move that the city of Prairie hires a consultant with city council's approval to go over the documentation, building by building for Panther Hill.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that the city hire a consultant to go over the paperwork and documentation for Panther Hill, building by building. You've heard the motion, ready for the question? Discussion? Councilman?
So, in that motion, I don't necessarily know if we're, so are we're wanting to find out from the building perspective what needs to be done or what needs to be done? Or should we be saying, making sure that don't have any legal?
No, the first will solve any, if they even exist, the second.
Okay.
So you should be, I would recommend you bring somebody in to look at the current status and work on if there are any deficiencies that need to be resolved, that person works through those deficiencies as a building official, as a quote-unquote building official, not your permanent one, but for this particular project. And that's what I think is needed at this point in time.
So in my unreadiness, could we add that? I mean, how are they gonna give us back this information in a report to city council in a draft? So, because if we leave these things open, part of why we're here is because of not crossing T's and dotting I's. And so the question is, with this consultant who's gonna look at Panther Hill, are we wanting a report back to them, to us? Are we wanting, what are we asking them to do?
My recommendation is you're asking someone to actually get in and solve the problems, not necessarily look at what may exist and then bring back a report for y'all then to decide how to move forward on solving it, but to have someone actually come in and say, where are we now in this process with each building or wherever it is, and let them be they will be your short-term building official for this project until you find somebody permanent. And then they can come back and, if you would like, obviously, make monthly reports to you, obviously.
But how does this work when the mayor has told the developer not to talk to anybody but him?
Hold on. When council is speaking, Councilman Rowland, you're speaking words that you don't know are in fact true.
When we've asked
I
them
don't.
to come to City Hall, we've asked them to come to City Council meeting.
We who?
Several councilmen have asked Panther Hill Apartments to come to City Council meeting. They don't have to come, but the response was, if the mayor requests, then we will come. And that's nothing different than what I just said.
No, actually, it's very different, because that's their prerogative to make that selection. What you delineated was, you said, I told them, and that's very different if you understand the English language. That's very different.
Point of order, please.
There's a motion on the floor. I've got an unreadiness. Do we need to do a budget adjustment? Because we're talking about spending money to start the budget.
I don't know, I'm not the budget officer, so I would defer to whoever.
No, I mean procedurally. Do we
At
need
this
to
moment in
make
time, no.
We approved So before we spend anything, we need to cover that.
Right, they'll,
Okay,
it should, I mean, I'm assuming everybody knows you're gonna have to work a process simultaneously to.
Yeah, but see, that's what I was saying, the process from the administrative part from the mayor, he doesn't wanna do that, and he hasn't been doing that. Which means that he should have brought to us, it's gonna cost us this amount of money to do this, this, and this. We set the policy, but who's gonna facilitate the day-to-day operation of this is the mayor. This is part of why we're here. We don't need to have, we can have the mayor bring us back. We make the motion, the mayor will say it's gonna cost us this, these are the two people, and these are the timeframes. That will be, we can set that in the motion, or the mayor can come back and say, this is what I got, is this what you wanted? And so, my point was, the person who's the outside consultant would only gonna be able to do their job if they have the ability to go on Panther Hill's property saying they're the consultant for the city of Prairie View and they want to redo the inspections or look at some things. And if they're wearing the city of Prairie View's official tag, what issues does that play out? Because of other things that we have. And so all I'm simply saying is that this is not the first time we've talked about this. And so in the motion, do we have to be as specific as putting all these simple things? Or is this something that the mayor was going to work back out for us? Or do we need to go piece by piece and line it out? Because you seem to be for this, Mr. Mayor, with the building official and everything. And so we're saying that, okay, we were saying, okay, I'm going to come back and find out how, the building, we don't have to pay. Is it generally going to cost this amount of money? What's the time frame we want this? We don't want this to take this a whole year.
I think we're getting off of the motion.
I think, before I call for the question, the attorney also stated that he will help us throughout this process.
Yes, I will.
So with me trusting in him, I'm pretty sure he knows how urgent this is to the city. He'll help us find a consultant that working along with the mayor to bring back to the meeting, to our city council meeting, knowing how urgent this is to the city. And that way we can approve it and get the money.
Councilman.
Before you call for question, this consultant, just so as clarification, that this consultant won't be confused with the building official, because we said that we won't have any temporary COs or COs put out until we have a building official. So I just wanted to put that on record that this building consultant is not to be confused that once we hire the building consultant, that all of a sudden temporary COs and COs will be issued. Also, are we able to get a list of all the buildings that have a CO or temporary CO right now? That way, whenever we get a consultant,
You let that person, like the way he just stated, when that person comes in, they start over from completely
I know, but
scratch to go find this information.
but the city it put out the certificate of occupancy and the TCO. So we're just asking, can we get a list of the buildings with COs and temporary COs, so that way, whenever the consultant comes, we know that, okay, so that means these are the building that students are in. There should be no other students moving into any extra building.
We can remember, the person's gonna come in front of the council. So those type of things, and what council wants them to do, that's gonna come out at that time. We can't put everything in a motion. But, I would, for clarification, is it council's position, based on your motion, that you want not one thing moving in the city until,
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just wanna make sure.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody's looking to build a house and all that, you want all that stopped?
Everything stopped.
Councilman Rowland? I want your position
We've
on record.
already voted on this. That's not about that
Yeah,
issue.
Okay.
what we're gonna do, what we will
We had a
do,
call for the questions. All those in favor say aye. Ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Rowland.
In this process of Panther Hill, the city doesn't have an engineer.
We have an emergency engineer, yes we do.
Has this emergency engineer looked at anything that have to do with Panther Hill? Answer is no.
No.
Right. And so I'm saying, so since May, when the engineers quit, have an engineer, or you said has an engineer or someone from the city that is not close to, that is not close to this development went out to help us be able to look at what's been going on. We've had several safety and health concerns that's come to us via Panther Hill. We're in the news, Panther Hill, and city councils come to you each time and say, well, how are we gonna rectify and mitigate this? The only thing you wanna do is say, well, what's the room number so I can, and so I'm simply saying, you should be able, in your file that you have.
asked about an engineer. You want to answer that question, or you want to keep rapping?
Since the file that you got from the city engineer, city attorney,
Mhm.
you should be able to tell us how many buildings are on the property, how many have COs, temporary COs, where are we at in each of the process on those buildings? Can you do that? That's the administrative function. You've signed your name
Are
on.
you done with your question?
Yes, I'm waiting for you to answer.
Well, no, you won't shut up. Okay, hold on.
Point of order.
Well, you don't ask a question and keep going on and not let somebody answer it. That is an order, you're right. Yes, we've got paperwork on every single building, an engineer, a master plumber, and licensed fire inspector has certified the safety of every single building. And as I said before, the only reason I asked you for name or room numbers, because like Councilman Rowland, you rattle on that there's a bunch of problems and you can't give a specific. The only fire I'm aware of is when a young man cut the oven on and the paper manual was still in the oven. Now, if you got another fire, give us a date, room number, something, but quit saying it's unsafe if you can't prove it's unsafe.
We don't have documents.
Minutes, I'll tell you, sent you several things that stood out, but my question,
No, the items you sent me were Brookside
it's
across
okay,
the street.
It's okay, we moving along. Nah,
Yes,
since
we are.
too. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But my question to you is, Exante did bring up a valid point, so that way we can do checks and balances, because we came before to say, hey, we don't want any more going off morals and ethics, said that we don't want any more temporary occupancies to be given out, and they were. So at this moment in time, could you email the attorney, if you don't have that information today, to say when the last certificate of occupancy was given out and the date, so that way we can make sure that moving forward that we don't see another building going up and students moving in when we still haven't dotted our I's and crossed our T's.
It's not a problem.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
No, not that.
Councilman Rowland?
So I'll also be kind of clear in the process. A certificate of occupancy has nothing to do with the developer putting up the building or working on the project.
No, it doesn't.
That's correct.
It's just
And so
final movement.
I want us, for who don't know that, to have the clarification.
It's final movement.
So that we're not scaring people thinking that.
And what I would propose, council member, and I'm sorry I interrupted, but I think it's important that y'all know that if we get to a point where your current